Welcome in.
Welcome in.
Welcome in.
We're both ready to welcome. I love it.
Welcome back to Do It for the Story. I'm Stacey.
I'm Morgan.
And yeah, welcome in.
Welcome in. Welcome back. Oh my gosh.
A lot has happened in the last week.
Oh my gosh.
A lot.
A lot.
We were just saying when we were prepping, like, oh wait, was that last weekend? And I legitimately was like, no, it was 2 weeks ago in my head. I'm like, no, this has been a long week.
A long week.
But we made it to Sunday.
We're here on the disc.
Cheers
couch.
to us and cheers to all our dear listeners.
Yeah. Because I'm sure, it's still, it's that time of year. October, November, we're all grinding until Thanksgiving.
Yep. We're grinding. We're dealing with all the noise. And
well, it's just like events and all the things. This is the time of year where, everybody's racing around, but which is why yesterday is exactly what we needed we had friends, family, really, it was just family in town, friends that we call family, just our hometown crew. We all got together.
My gosh. We didn't have everybody, obviously. They're the crew. You know who you are. We did miss you, Blicky. We missed you, Jimmy. We missed you, Linz and Mare and
Ashley.
Ash and, Wyatt, all the folks. But it was an impromptu meet.
Yeah.
Kate was in town for some lacrosse stuff.
Work, yeah.
And then Kara was down.
Yeah,
just because
visiting.
And then so it just works out so nicely, selfishly to us, because it kind of it's able to like replicate childhood, because we're all not living in the same small town, but because me, Stacey, Morgan, and then our friend Warren all live like in the same neighborhood. When we have our siblings into town who are a close crew growing up, it's like we're all here.
Yeah, and we're all together again. And we're lucky that, so many of us, so like when Kate isn't in, flies in, it's not that big of a deal for Kiki to come down, 45-minute drive, you know. Yeah. Mimi, making the drive.
Yeah. It was like we all needed it. And I love seeing the next generation hanging yesterday too. Like Angel and Little Diva.
It'd be the third generation, because
oh, that's true.
A lot of us are friends because our parents were friends.
Right.
And so then we're friends,
so,
and then the kids are friends.
Just flies.
And and actually it's the fourth generation. Oh my God, that's crazy.
Energy attracts energy.
Energy attracts energy.
And what a cool group of kids. I just gotta say, they were so cute yesterday. But yeah, it was a beautiful fall day. Like the first kind of, it's like a high of 55 or 57 yesterday. So we actually got to be outside and just chill.
Yeah, and there was no wind. It was just perfect.
Yeah, it was great.
It was crystal clear.
Yeah.
Fall day.
Heart was full.
Heart was full. And we all kept saying that. It was just like so good to be together.
Yeah. And we also, one of our friends, Ashley, was not there, but we did shout her out on our Insta stories if you didn't see it. I should have brought it down because Amazon, Joe told me, just literally delivered it.
Oh, nice.
But I won't say for who. Baby shower coming up. But she wrote a postpartum cookbook.
Yeah.
Which is like so amazing. So we took like a little photo.
Yeah,
yesterday.
we need to put that in the show notes. The nutrition. I'm forgetting her Instagram handle.
Yeah, we'll add it in.
It's it's
proud
a
of you, girl.
Cookbook, and it's beautiful. Like literally, just even the book is physically beautiful, and then just like these insanely
it was just
awesome
great.
And easy and just really healing
I'm
recipes.
making a note to add it in.
Yeah. So Ash was missed, but we did take a photo with the cookbook.
Yeah.
So that was cute.
It was cute. It was cute. So we had that yesterday, and then last weekend we had an amazing weekend. We were up in the city, up in New York, at the Dear Media in Real Life conference.
I think they call it
event.
Yeah, they just
say Dear Media in Real Life.
In real life, yeah.
And which was really cool because if you're a podcast listener, even if you're not sure, but Dear Media is a media company that for podcasts specifically. And so let's say the parent podcast, the original podcast for their brand was The Skinny Confidential.
Him and Her.
And the CEO, Michael Bostic, and his wife, Lauren, host that podcast. So they were there, but along with many of their other podcasts, there were panels throughout the day. So it was really cool to like be sitting there with, you know, hearing people, one, just being in person. I think, you know, we are lucky that we're a co-hosted podcast, that we're physically together too, not even like doing like Zoom recordings, but it's just like anything. Like, you know, I work remote in my day job and I love that opportunity. We both do. But personal connection every once in a while is great. And to be able to like have conversation and just be in the room live, hearing people give advice or just talk about, it was almost like a little bit of live shows, like for some of the panels.
Yeah. They did a good mix of that where it felt like a live show and it was pure like entertainment in a sense. And then some that were very much like educational, like the wellness, you know, panel with Lauren and the fitness instructor.
Yeah. The founder of Evelo Fitness, who she's been on the podcast before. But and then there was like the motherhood panel and, you know, there were different brands there. Anyway, go check it out if you want to see. It was a cool event. We were there as obviously podcasters learning and wanting to network and take it all in. But we met some really cool people, a lot of amazing women. That's what was great too. It was a lot of women,
very
predominantly.
Community
like from the people we were sitting next to, and we met people that are, you know, content creators and women that own their own marketing agencies and other women that have started their own podcasts or
vintage shop. And, you know, and then because they own a vintage shop, they're a content creator or both, you know. Right.
And even then the women, I put on her show notes too, but they had some of the vendors there that were there for like sponsors of the event. They had a really cute one. They had amazing gift bags, but they had at the one, LaCroix was one of their sponsors, the artist doing sketches.
That was so cool.
It was so cool. It was such a cute idea, but she was amazing. And then it's like, it was just happy vibes, positivity. And if you know Dear Media, they kind of are, I shouldn't say no. Well, at least on the Skinny Confidential, but Dear Media overall, they like bring in everybody. It doesn't really, they're not focused on just one side of the aisle, even politically. People, different backgrounds, different niche. You know, they have comedy, health, wellness, culture, mom podcasts, relationships, all of the things. So it was cool. Of course, this was also pre-election too, but to be in the room with everybody who, you know, different backgrounds, different ethnicities.
Yeah.
It's not like we were all walking around saying, this is what I believe in or not. But, you know, you just knew that. Like we all were there because we clearly were fans of their brand or of the podcast that are on the channel. So I don't know. It was great. It was energizing.
And it was cool to hear too, you know, it's just nice to be in the room with people that also are going through something similar, just like we've talked about before with the community thing, or honestly, even with work, when we talked about like having relationships with people within a similar career. And, you know, we were able to share information and tips and brainstorm and just also just vent a little bit too of like, oh, this thing is, while it's super fun, it's hard. And like we are dedicating.
There's so much validation happening.
Yeah, it was a lot of that. And so it was just that openness and a space where, and that was the cool thing too. I felt like this space was very, it was diverse in the sense of, and I'm not even talking, and there were, you know, all races and ethnicities and all that, but I'm also just talking of like in the work that people do or why people were there and also where people maybe even came from too, because it was physically and also just maybe even what they have financially too, because it was super affordable.
Yeah, it was.
I was like, that was really accessible. Now, of course, you had to get to New York, but I felt like for what we literally came home with, not just from like the knowledge and the wealth of the day, but even like the gift bag alone.
We were just freaking out. I just literally was sitting here. I'll grab it. What was I putting on right before we started? Summer Fridays, this lip oil that I had never tried, but I wanted to. And I'm like, oh my God, full size in my gift bag. Like,
yeah, and it was all these clean beauty products.
That doesn't happen at my day job.
Yeah,
no. Usually get a koozie or something.
No, I mean, literally, we definitely made back the cost of the ticket with all the free amazing things.
It was great. Cool. But I will say, so like, just if you are someone, and again, not just a podcaster, content creator, even if you're a fan on their podcast,
just like someone that needs to network.
It was cool. And I would definitely, which we saw other people doing, like, making a trip out of it, making it the reason for going to New York or whatever.
Because there can always be something else that you need to do in New York, or like you could,
right. And I think this was their first one in New York, but anyway, they different locations, but I'm like, I will be back.
Yeah. And
I had a blast.
And I will say they live and sometimes record in Austin, and they know that they had two of the other ones in Austin. But I've gone to conferences in Austin for other things, and Austin's a great, affordable, and and it can also be a great
fun city to
trip,
go to.
Fun city if you can turn it into something else too. So anyway,
it was a cool experience, but it was like our first more industry specific, networking kind of event
that we did on our own, because the Annapolis Film Festival or like boat show, those were really showing up to like support those things, and it was for us too, but we were kind of just following along.
We were only
we sought out, we were like invited, and this was us seeking out
more targeted audience, just podcasts. So it was cool. And when we were there, of course, we were kind of like riding the high right from the weekend, because we were like, oh my God, it felt so good to be in a creative space with other creative minds and, and all of the things. But it kind of sparked us into this topic today that we already wanted to talk about, which was just sort of the art of, we were talking about networking, right, at the event. And we're like, networking. And for us, in our careers, Morgan and I have always had sales backgrounds. For me, it's like sales, account management, project management, all of that. The sales has been the basis, the foundation, I guess. Networking is literally the job.
Right.
Like, you can't sell without making connections. So we were in the room also, like, it's not like Morgan and I have ever been in a networking event together for our day jobs. No. So we were like, we're thriving. We loved, it was funny.
Even when we worked together, we actually never hosted those events together.
No, because we went to, at one point, Morgan and I worked for the same company.
Yeah.
A couple years ago, but we would go into the office randomly for like a training.
Yeah, that's right.
But
never really had. Yeah.
We worked in different areas. So we were like, oh my gosh, we love this. And we were doing what felt to us as natural, making connections, not just saying hi to someone, just being like, hi, why are you here? Do you also have a podcast? What interested you about the event? Asking immediately, like, those open-ended questions and things. And we were realizing, even when they got into the happy hour time of the day, of the evening, there weren't, a lot of people kind of had filtered out, and we were like, oh my God, this is the time to like really mingle.
Yeah.
And so we were thinking about, and I said, you know what? Just for some of the people we talk to, for us, it's second nature. But if your day job is, let's say there's somebody there that's like, I'm here for a podcast, or I'm a content creator, but my day job is making this up, I'm an accountant. You probably don't go to as many conferences, unless you're like an accountant with your own firm trying to get clients, but you're probably not at as many networking events, conferences where you are trying to build relationships to sell.
Right. Because I was going to say, because there's always, like, even an accountant, there's totally an association and a conference that you're all going to, but it's probably like presenting the new accounting software and these, like, let's talk about these rules and regulations.
Right.
You're not necessarily needing to network with another accountant that also works at, an Amazon, Google, whatever kind of thing.
Right.
And which you should still be. And this is the point of this conversation, because you could, meet someone that then hires you for a job or whatever. But to Stacey's point, in that moment, a lot of jobs don't require you or train you, is the word I'm looking for. Train you to be a networker, train you to sell.
Yeah.
Right. And but what we both talked about is like after being at the Dear Media event and seeing, just you, even in that scenario, still being like, you know what, let's use our areas of expertise to lean in. No, we are not experts here, but like we know how to connect with people and how to build relationships.
Right.
And we know that is the first step often to opportunity. It's like we've talked about here before on the art of recruiting, or career tips from a recruiter. Just talking about how, like, for me, I have except for the first job where I was recruited for, every job I've ever gotten was through networking.
Yeah.
And that is, whether it's a job or life or volunteerism, like those networking and connection moments are real game changers.
Yes.
And it really, the basis of that and being super comfortable with networking is sales. And we were just so lucky to have careers that we fell into that really trained us in sales. And those things are so, like, huge life skills.
Because even you saying that, maybe somebody who is listening to this that knew us personally, not us personally from a professional setting, right, might hear that and be like, oh, well, I see you women, I see both of you at, social events. You're always working a room, even pre our jobs, right?
Right.
Sure. We grew up in spaces where, like, our mom is such a social butterfly. Both our parents, they're like connectors, and you're at an event and they're talking to this person and that person. But there's a difference of, because that's always the one thing too, you would hear it all the time, I feel like, in sales. It's like when people say, well, I like people. It's like, it really doesn't have anything to do with if you like people, but it's also like the curiosity. And, I think one of the OGs from Real Housewives of New York, I gotta say, this has been one of my favorite lines. If you know me, I don't care. Come for me. I love Bravo. I'm a Bravo girly. I love all the Housewives franchises. It is the millennial version of the soap opera.
Yep.
It's when I can turn my brain off and tune out and just, like, watch these women, right? Real Housewives, Luann de Lesseps. I remember in the one season, she said, life is about seduction, from seducing the sales clerk to seducing your husband. And you may hear that and be like, okay, seduction, you're like flirting. It's like, no, what she means is, like, there is this art of connection and flattery and complimenting someone. You know how far it gets. Everybody knows you're standing in line at a coffee shop and I'm like, oh my God, cute sweater. My day is made. And I'm already like, I love this person. And it's just a little opening, but so we want to talk more today about how our sales experience, we really apply it to, like, everyday life. And it has just taught me so much in how I think, approach conversations, and just daily interactions, truthfully. Even Joe was like, okay, like, even conversations and in relationships, it really does. Like, I think everybody can learn something from the art of sales.
Absolutely. And, as you were saying all that, I was just flashing to, just so, like, even recently, just different moments in life where what sales, I think, especially for me, did was teach me to never be afraid, even though I knew that, even though I was taught that as a kid. It just gave me a new level of confidence to never be afraid to ask the question.
Yes.
And one, obviously, and we'll get to that later, but, specific, like, just, I think it's fun to go through, like, the basic sales tips and stuff and how we apply them. But from learning not only like literal questions to ask, but just in general, when you are associating your job and your money and your ability to buy food and put a roof over your head with your power to connect with people and believe in something and be confident in something, it really is a huge unlock. And for me, that was when, I remember you joking about in some random episode about how, prior to me becoming a recruiter and being trained in sales, where, I was a teenager and would be like nervous at the store to like
totally.
ask the clerk and stuff. But now
no one would have believed that, that knows you
now.
Yeah. Post you working.
Yeah. And that's so interesting. But if you think about it too, which is really cool, is that, we hear so often now that, the brain, or what is it, the specific, cortex, whatever, the brain isn't fully developed until, we're like 25. And so interesting that 22, I'm coming out of school.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a real
true.
time to really, that job out of school completely shifted my confidence level and made me realize that sales was every day. And for me, as that recruiter job, realizing that I could really help people, and it was like a real service. Like, I believed in it. It wasn't like, and we all got to eat. So there's totally all of it, people that have had sales jobs that they were like, I hate selling these batteries right now, but I got to do it. And but I was really lucky to be selling something right from the get-go that I like genuinely believed in.
Yeah.
And that's a sell you want to be a part of.
Especially the time we talked about that, I think in the recruiting episode, or I'm not even sure. I think we've mentioned it before, but especially for you to be a recruiter when you were helping people in like a recession.
Yeah.
Holy hell.
It was,
it
was because it was two parts of that. It was a recession. So people really needed me.
Right.
So it was fulfilling that value add, when you sell something that somebody needs and you provide them that service, you feel really great. But also, it was literally like the main thing everybody needed at that time was someone to help them find a gig and make the
and
connections.
This is also when you didn't have LinkedIn then.
No.
So like
it was
we talked about before,
beginning.
you're like literally it's very networking was so essential. Having that connection, having a good recruiter, the in-person connection. And like you're saying, and I never even really thought about that, of your brain not being fully formed. And I mean, I've thought about that, but your brain not being fully formed until you're 25, and thinking about the recent grad, being in their first job, because a lot of people get into sales by accident, like us. I mean, a lot of people. I then sought it out because my first job wasn't selling, and I was seeing the salespeople, and I'm like, I want to do that. Yeah. Which a lot of people would be like, oh my God, no, you could never.
No, yeah.
It definitely takes a personality, but there's a lot of entry-level positions at different companies, like Morgan was saying, especially depending on the type of product, where you just need like a call center. Mm-hmm. It's literally your cold calling, which is picking up the phone, going down a list, calling people, calling companies, not knowing anything about them, trying to sell the product and, get a meeting with them. And that sounds, and even me looking at the other people in those roles at my first job being like, okay, I want to do that. I think that's more me. I was in like a research role at my first job. And so I wasn't doing as much. I wasn't like client facing. I was more internal, working on the different teams. I'm like, I want to have that social interaction, and I want to be able to be selling stuff and convincing people and telling them why they should do this thing or sign up for this service. And then when I got in the seat, jobs later, of having to pick up that phone, man, you do not realize how hard it is to do a cold calling or, real estate door knocking, whatever, because you have to literally just like rip the Band-Aid off. And so to your point about the confidence piece, there are so many young people that it's their first job, or somebody just by accident and they find out it's not a fit for them. But there's no one that can have a sales job, especially as a first job, and doesn't gain a wealth of knowledge and foundational business knowledge, because you can't, that confidence, like you said.
Yep. Well, and sorry, go ahead.
No, just that. Like I'm literally like flashing back to like my first day, like on the phones, being like, okay, great, smile and dial, and having that moment of the first time you get the no, and you're like, oh shit. It's pretty humbling.
Yep. Or they just hang up, or like if someone
kirks you out
because, you know, they just want to. It's easy
Makes
to do
you
that.
Think twice about how you respond to telemarketers.
Yep. And yeah, it's you're like overcoming that rejection and then jumping back on another call.
Yes.
You realize like, oh wait. It's that, what's the worst? And that, I wonder if that's when I started saying that. I say this to myself and then to other people all the time. Like, I'm always what's the worst thing that's going to happen? Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like that moment where you realize, well, what's the worst that's going to happen? I pick up the phone, I call this company, this person, whatever, completely cold. What is the worst thing that's going to happen? They're going to cuss me out and they're going to hang up the phone.
Yeah.
And then you realize after that, the one time that it happens, and you realize like, okay, I'm going to vent to my coworker for 2 seconds, and then I'm just going to breathe in and out, and you get on the phone again. Well, you're like, that is such a life skill.
Well, you bring up a good point. Even when you just said you vent to your coworker for a couple seconds, this is also, now I know there's still a lot of like entry-level positions where they want you in an office, right, in a call center calling. But imagine sitting, at least in sales jobs where I'm in a room of like 100 people. We're not in our own offices. We're hearing every conversation, because a lot of times that's strategic, right? They're like, we want you to be motivated by others. Be like, oh, that person over there is just dialing, having all these conversations.
Yeah.
And we want you to be learning from other, like hearing conversations, right? But super intimidating, especially when it's your first time and you're the newbie at a job, being like, oh, everybody's fucking listening for the new girl to hear what her pitch is going to be or how she's going to get, you know, through to this person on the other line. You are a bit, and I can be the most confident person in the world. You know, I love when it's volunteering at a show, like raising my hand. I mean, I did improv for fun. But then when you're like, ooh, okay.
Because you're associating that you're going to get a rush from that sell regardless, but you're like, I really need to eat. Like, this is commission.
Yes.
And so, yeah, it's a different level of pressure. And yeah, but and it's something too, it's funny. I'm just literally sitting in one of the bullpens that I was in right now visually. Like, I'm thinking of, like, you're talking about like, oh, being the person that, and my one old coworker would always have to stand, turn to the window, and like, but that's such a good, because you even see that on those random reality real estate shows where they do show and they're like standing and everything, like they tell them like, you got to stand, make this call, you're doing a cold call, like that stuff is real, like the energy, smiling when you're on the phone,
smile and
so
dial,
that you can
baby.
make sure that the sound in your tone, because no one wants to buy from someone who, if you sound like a curmudgeon, then it sounds like you hate your job,
or you're trying to be cool,
like what you're
like, I'm the new person. Yeah, it comes off. You can tell.
Yeah.
And like you're saying, I like the standing up. I do it now too. Like, I have a standing desk, but being able to walk around when I'm in that call,
when you're in the mode of, when you're in a
pitching
mode,
and I'm like, let me go. I need to use my hands. I need to walk. And of course, this is, I'm off camera, you know, when it's a call like that, because you get different people, different energy. But yeah, it is not as easy as it looks. That is for damn sure. But it teaches you so much. And like you were saying about the rejection, because that's huge. I mean, you get thick skin real quick, because in sales, you know, there's the high highs and the low lows. Like you said, you'll get that high, that adrenaline rush when you get somebody on the hook, you make that sale. But then you're also like, damn, if it's a day where like, yeah, I just called, you know, 80 people, you know, the longest conversation I had was somebody just wanting to talk and had no interest in buying anything. Then it's like, damn, what am I going to do tomorrow? How am I going to come up with what I got? But it's also when you're in those conversations, the objections people throw at you.
Yeah.
Different if somebody's just being like, fuck off, stop calling me. That is just okay, moving on. But when someone is challenging you, it's like every call you're in a mini debate. And you have to really be focused on, okay, this person is saying, well, why would I need that? No, Morgan, I'm good. I don't need a job. Why would I want to go work at your company? And didn't you see my LinkedIn? I have a job, but you're trying to reach out to that candidate that has that very specific skill set for the role that you're trying to fill. And you have to say to them, well, tell me about your current job. What are your goals? Da, 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 da. You have to figure out, like, I'm tap dancing right now. I am got to be quick on my feet to also in that like 30 seconds they're giving me, make sure I say something that may pique their interest or stroke their ego.
Yeah. Also, do the passive thing where you're like, hey, your background looks super interesting. Do you know it looks so similar and perfect for like this job that I'm recruiting for. Do you know anybody that might be interested? And they're more, when you're not seeking out them, you're like, wait, why are you not seeking out me? It's just like that little game.
There's little games. Like, when they're like, oh, well, actually, can you tell me more?
Can you tell me more? Maybe that would actually be something I might want to
I'm always open to new opportunities. I'm happy where I am. But then you're like, behind the call, you're doing this.
Dancing, got him. I'm dead. But yeah, it's just thinking from a different perspective. It forces you to do that and to put yourself in someone else's shoes. It's just such a life skill. And which it makes me think of too, like that saying, just the life skills part is saying yes. I became so much more, and this also took time too, and even more confidence in like myself and my life and sales and all the things in general. But definitely, sales made me more of a yes person. Like just say yes to the thing, because it was the thing where, they only want to take a call at 7:00. And they've got 10 minutes. Well, yeah, I'm going to take my job is not 9 to 5 then.
Like
I'm going to take that call. Yeah, I am going to take that call. I'm going to say yes to that. Or if, they're like, oh, actually, I am going to this networking event downtown. I could have 15 minutes before, for you. At noon, say yes. Cause like you gotta, anytime they give you a slight opening, you're saying yes. And that's the kind of, and I've applied that to life of, just say yes more often.
Totally.
Because those are the moments where, if I didn't take that opportunity or didn't say like, oh, sure. If someone's like, would you want to go sailing with me tonight or whatever? It's just a missed opportunity. I'm not saying like stress yourself out and say yes to every freaking thing that comes your way, but like being less scared about it.
Right.
Don't overthink it as
much.
And
more curious. And it's like, even like with this pod, if we, different events or different people that we've met or been connected to, it's also sometimes you may know like this conversation is probably, I may not, like in your situation of the candidate that says, hey, I can meet you 15 minutes at this networking event. Maybe they've already said something in the conversation that makes you think like, oh, this is going to be pretty tough to get them. But like you said, maybe they have connections to someone else, or they'll come back to you, or you never know what happens. I mean, God, we're millennials. Oh, like we said in the other episode, always have your resume up to date. The market's so volatile. It's like, it may be sooner than you think they're coming back, but it also gives you an opportunity to, it's like a do it for the story situation. You go to the networking event, maybe meet somebody else, just like us doing Annapolis Film Festival. Mm-hmm. When we were given the opportunity, at first we were like, oh, wait, that's when? Like, do we have everything that we need? Like, like, okay, we'll figure it out. Yes, we'll do it. We'll get the equipment there. We'll be there. We'll make our schedules work. It was fantastic. We met so many people out of it, but it was such a great, pod aside, we just had a blast.
We had a great time. Exactly.
Yeah.
And it was because it was, it ended up being like this incredibly safe space and awesome like situation that we also got to kind of like test out the industry. It was our first exposure to this industry, you know, the media and that a really creative outlet, which was our first test run. Is like our first, our personal branding.
Totally.
You know, of branding the pod, of how we were going to, you know, how people responded to us, and in a place where we could say, hey, this is a brand new thing for us. This is what we're doing. And all of these people had ideas or were willing to answer questions for us, because that's another thing that you learn from sales. People love being asked for help. People love it. And
they love talking about themselves.
They love talking about themselves, and they love being asked for help. They love showing
and like
their
having
expertise.
curiosity. They love when people are curious about them.
Yes. And that is, I mean, that in itself, oh my God, like I'm literally remembering it was my first sales job. One of the lines that we had to use was, because I was I was recruiting finance and accounting people. And so we would call into, again, this is very beginning of LinkedIn. Like, people are not on LinkedIn.
Yeah, this is
we're
like
using Yellow
2009.
Pages. We're using Yellow Pages to cold call into companies, to cold call into accounting firms, to then ask for like specific role, like a specific, we wouldn't even have a name, right? So we'd have, you know, you're going deep on the cold here.
Right.
So in order to get past the receptionist and to get past the random, you know, accounts receivable person to get to the manager, you're saying, I'm an accounting consultant. Hi, I'm Morgan. I'm calling from XYZ. Or I wouldn't even say that, actually. I'd be like, hi, I'm Morgan. I'm an accounting consultant and I need some help. Can you get me connected with the accounting manager?
And I need some
help. Yeah.
But people, you're right. They hear that and it's like this.
They hear consultant. They don't really understand what it is. And they also think it sounds special and specific and totally related to, you know, and think of, you know, we're calling into accounting firms, you know, so they're already thinking in that consulting mindset, because that's what they are. And so then I'm saying, and I need some help. So people are, oh, this person just needs some help. Oh my gosh. Then I get onto the phone with the senior accountant and I say it again, you know, and I need some help. And they are saying, yes, I will talk. Oh yeah. How can I help you? What's going on? And then I would just have to quickly go, hey, I'm Morgan, and I'm, you know, I actually have this awesome opportunity with this, you know, XYZ company. And I'd have my pitch perfect, and I'd be like, this is the hook.
It's got to be.
And as long as they hear it, they might be interested. And that's how freaking hard that it actually was. But the fact that I actually said, I'm an accounting consultant, I need some help. I mean, that is a total line. But wait, I have to finish the story because this is all flooding back to me now. So again, I'm a young 20-something, first job out of school. I'm also young 20-something, friends, looking for friends.
Right.
One of a friend from home calls me and says, hey, they had recently started working like in the area. Hey, some of my friends, this person worked in an accounting firm. Right. Hey, some of my friends and I were doing like this kickball league or whatever it was, flag football.
Okay.
Do you want to join? You know, being nice, inviting me along.
Right.
One of the happy hours, they start talking about recruiters calling into them.
Stop.
Yes. And they go, one of the accountants goes, oh, you'll never believe what the new line they're saying is. I'm an accounting consultant and I need some help. I've never told anyone that story because in the moment I was like, oh dear God. I just was like, I didn't want to say anything. I'm a 20-something.
Are you kidding me?
I'm like,
wow.
Yeah, I'm like, oh my God, that's crazy. Because they're all asking me, oh, what do you do? Oh, I'm actually a recruiter. And this other guy that was in the group was also recruiters. They were laughing, blah, blah, blah. But then they were totally dragging. It was my agency. Yeah. We were known. We were the little 5 people.
Well, it's like you said, some people will hear that. And like, you know, we've all done it when you have like just any kind of telemarketer call you because, you know, there's different types of, you know, sales, right? And like you have the B2B, business to business, B2C, business to consumer. And I was in one sales job where it was a kind of a mix of that because it was the wedding industry. And so it was small businesses, but some of them were, you're calling a DJ, a photographer. It is almost like you're selling to just one person, right?
Yeah.
And getting on the phone with them, especially as areas get more saturated, because I had like a region, right? Of like, these are the only businesses in these 2 states, or I have these 2 cities, right? And they're like, okay, we get it. You guys have been calling us for years and years and years. Of calling and being like, hi, is this, blah, blah, blah DJ? Like, yeah. I'm like, hey, like, I was just wondering, do you do weddings? And they're like, oh yeah, we love weddings. I'm like, do you have any availability for next year? And like, oh yeah, like I've got, 20 dates available and in October, September. I'm like, oh, wow, you have that many dates available during like peak wedding season? Because most vendors are usually booked up like a year in advance. And then they're like, yeah. And they're still not getting it. And they're going in. They're like, oh, this is a bride. And then I was like, how do you plan on getting those dates booked up? And then they're like, oh, shit. And then, because I'm like, did I say I was calling from, insert company,
Yeah.
Did I say I was calling from there?
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, well. And then they're interested because I did ask those questions. And then I'm going, I already asked the how. They're giving me the information. Or they're like, well, I do word of mouth. And I'm like, oh, that's great. But did you know, the majority of people say a review is just as qualified as a word, blah, blah, blah. You keep going. And then you got them hooked because I just say, well, what is your plan? Well, why do you think it is that you're not as booked up? Well, how can you do that? Well, why is that you don't think that this would work for you? And you ask how and why so many times, and that's really it. You kind of let them, walk it to me. Give me the information. That's when I'm sitting in my seat going like, hell yeah. That's when I start to get amped because I'm like, I love let me come back and forth with you. I love the objection part.
It's the simple why and how and then the silence. And that was actually something that I remembered at the Annapolis Film Festival, which in the moment, I'm running ragged because again, we haven't even started the podcast yet. We're like, I'm running around there like trying to be at every place I'm supposed to be and figure out like what I'm doing and how I'm presenting.
Yes.
And I'm not even thinking in that moment, I'm just doing my typical, yes, I know life is sales, but when I'm doing my interviews, I'm just going into typical, like just asking questions, blah, 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 no different than I interview now or when I'm, connecting with the hiring manager. And when you said that to me about, journalism and the hows and the whys, I'm like, again, another thing that is just like sales.
Yes.
It's all the same and just being quiet and allowing someone the safety to speak and the connection.
And let them keep talking.
Like, let them keep talking. Let them feel connected to me. Mm-hmm. I want them to feel, and it's not, and I hope when, people are hearing this, that they're not thinking of, oh, it's so, just ingenuine. You're lying. I'm like, no. Every sale I ever did I believed in it. That's why I was good at it.
Yeah. And sometimes, like you're saying, people think they know and they are closed off. And sometimes it takes that, unfortunately, it's not even just to get that time on the phone, just to get that hook in, to be able to help them and then ask the why and the how to get them thinking. And then they're like, well, you're right. And like you said, I went to school for journalism. I clearly made a quick change up, but that was the thing. I was, when I was started to getting into more sales roles, I was like, oh, this is cool because I am interviewing people. I'm saying how, why, it's open-ended questions. And like we're saying, that active listening part, and that can be applied, again, we're talking about everyday life. We've all been at the cocktail party where sometimes you're talking to the person that's like, you're like, oh my God, someone save me. Like I'm in the corner. I can't do this anymore. But a lot of times, if you start paying attention to those conversations, it's because they're either just talking at you about yourself or they're saying like, what do you do? And you're like, oh, I'm, an account manager. And they're like, oh, okay. And if they don't know like what your industry is, it's like getting more curious of like, oh, well, where are you from? Or how did you get down here? Did you take the train? Like, I'm looking for all the little quick how, whys just to find other connections so I don't have to go down this boring path of what's typical.
Right.
And because you know how it is. It's like we said before. Yeah, prior to me selling, naturally, I am an extrovert. I can connect with people, but there's a difference too when you're to have interesting conversation. You have to ask open-ended questions.
Well, it's asking open-ended questions, and it's also active listening, because it is, again, to your point, you know, and it's kind of so funny. Like you said earlier, it goes back to that, like, do it for the story. Like if you're in that moment where you're like, oh my God, like this conversation, where is it going? You can also just be doing it then at that point to entertain yourself.
Yes. Oh, I've done that so many times where I'm like, I'm dying, but I'm having a ball.
I'm having a ball. I'm thinking
like
of
dates.
Yes, I'm listening to all the random things that you're saying, and then I'm randomly telling them this story that happened to me, and blah blah blah. Oh, I was in Kentucky that one time. You know, just whatever, and make it interesting, because it's also that just the human connection, that person wanting to get to know you, that person wanting to be seen by you. They're walking away with, oh my gosh, this has been great. So fun meeting you. And it's that moment of when, like, literally I can think of it like at the Dear Media, you know, event, of people being like, oh my gosh, this was so awesome. Like, can we please stay connected? And you just don't know where that's going to go, let alone at minimum, like I'm saying, just to entertain yourself. Right. Just like, what's the worst that's going to happen?
Totally.
You know, you're already there. You're already in the room.
Totally.
You know, of course, there can be those random nights where we want to sit in the corner and we're just like, I don't have it in us. But if you're there, it's like, you know, take advantage of it. Turn it into an opportunity.
Right. Turn it into opportunity. And again, just if approach it with curiosity, because a lot of times in sales, you're not the first conversation. Like, yes, you have to get the hook, you have to get in there. But that was also me. And there's a thing in sales too, they call it the sales cycle, right? Someone that, if I'm calling a small business and I'm talking directly to the owner of like Morgan's coffee shop, me cold calling her, Morgan picking up the phone, I'm like, okay, this could be a shorter sales cycle because she's the decision maker. She's writing the check, she's hiring the people, she's going to be yes or no. Now Morgan calling the accounting firm, like you're saying, getting through the accounts payable person, then getting to the senior, that's going to take a little bit longer because there's multiple people you have to get through, and then maybe multiple decision makers in that. But so that's why the intro was quick. I got to be in there, got to be quick. You know, this could be like, they always call it like a one call close. I could be on the one, which is not the case in like the industry I'm in now, where it's corporate and I've got to deal with many people. It can take months. It could take a year for me to sell certain things. And so the conversation gets tailored. And that's the thing, just like you're saying at an event, the conversation gets tailored, the vibe, but when you just shut up and listen to people, like you just learn so much. And I think it's also that, like, I don't know, for me, I love, not even with, I don't even want to bring up politics, but of course it's like something I thought at first. When people are digging at you and they want to engage you, and that's not saying politics, let's just say they kind of already know maybe, and this could even be somebody that you know personally, they already know maybe where you stand on something, or let's say it's not even politics, like they know you're not a fan of Star Wars, making this up, and they like want to get a rise out of you about it. To combat it, you just, again, the why. Well, why? Why do you think that is? Why do you think it's the best film ever? Interesting. Well, how did you become a fan? Like, you can quickly turn conversations around just to get the fuck out of there.
Yeah, you don't have to be fully engaged. And I'm just saying, to your point, not about sales. You know, if you're like trying to close, always be closing. That is different. But if you're just like trying to, if you're just trying to use a sales tactic to get out of there, or just be able to glass over, you know, how, why? Oh,
but and we're talking about more of the,
and flip it on their head,
right? Like the obvious career sales conversations, and then what I just mentioned being in a personal conversation. But let's also talk about how valuable it is when you are now being sold something.
Oh, absolutely.
Buying a car as a woman. I'll never forget the first time not the first time I bought a car, but the first time I bought a car without like a parent coming with me buying a car from Morgan or going with a partner or anything. It was like, I can fucking handle this on my own. And we all know the stats don't lie. Women, whether you're going to get your car serviced in a garage or you're buying a car, especially, it's a predominantly male-dominated industry, so they assume you automatically don't know as much about the auto industry. They think this is going to be an easy one because she's probably just buying off of aesthetic, right? Always come prepared. Just like you would if you're going to a network event. Know who's in the room. Try to learn a little bit about them so you can make those personal connections and you can have an engaging conversation that isn't just like, oh, if I knew, making this up, but if I'm trying to get connected with the company Morgan's recruiting for, and I saw on LinkedIn she's also in some sailing organization, and I'm, you all know, you listen to the regatta episode, I'm a powerboat girl. Well, I'm going to be like, oh my God, I saw someone on LinkedIn, like you're in the, I'm making this up, Annapolis Sailing Org. Like, that's so cool. My sister sails, I honestly have a powerboat, but I'm learning. Like, I've used that, a little white, zhuzh it up.
You zhuzh it up and say, I was actually on a regatta with them one time. I mean, it's, yes.
Because it's personalization. And that's like a big buzzword
yes.
in not just sales, but anywhere you go. I mean, you can't go to a hotel without personalization. If you're a Marriott Rewards member or a Hilton or whatever, they know, oh, you always like to book this type of room. And, even when you check in, they might have something available for you, blah, blah, blah. Personalized because you feel special. Mm-hmm. Just like when we turn on Netflix, we're like, oh, Netflix knows what I like, or my algorithm on Instagram. When I do that research and I have something too, that's like our common denominator of connection, especially if it's like a cool, interesting thing, then I'm like, okay, sailing isn't just like Morgan being a part of the, Black women in tech group. It's like, this is like an interest. This is a hobby, passion for her. Mm-hmm. She's probably jazzed to talk about something different than work.
Yep.
And be like, wait, what? You know it?
Yep.
So doing your homework on that, but just tangenting, buying the car. Obviously, you're going to look up what you want. You know the price range. You know the type of car you want. You know the specs you need. But doing your research too into the make and model, ask some other people. I remember I went and I asked a friend of mine who was a sales technician at a garage. I was like, hey, first of all, I'm going to need some lingo from you. So I can just subtly say it in conversation so they hear that and are going, oops, maybe I'm not going to be able to dupe her as quickly. Then I need to know what are the top 3 things I should be asking about this car that, again, maybe I wouldn't know on Google. Or should I ask them when I pop the hood, what am I looking for? Are there things that are red flags if I'm buying a used car? And thank God I did all those things because I never forget. I had a guy try to sell me a car that had water damage. Literally, if I hadn't talked to the friend, I was like, what's this rust about? And they were like, oh, and I'm like, I think it has water damage. And the guy was like, oh, it was also the end of the month. Mm-hmm. And the guy was really forcing this car on me. And I just said, look, I'm in sales too. So I can fully understand the kind of pressure you're under when it gets down to the end of the month and you've got to hit a quota. I said, are you in monthly quotas? First, I just said, are you in monthly quotas or quarterly? And he was because then I was getting pissed. I did not buy a car from this dealership because I'm like, this is ridiculous. And he already kind of did the talk down thing a little bit of you want a good car, you're a lady, da, 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 da. And I'm like, whatever. I don't like that. And I was like, well, this car looks like it has water damage. And I told you, I want to spend X amount of dollars off the lot, tags, title, everything. So you're not meeting that. You're ignoring it. You're trying to upsell me saying, I'll buy this and that. So when I said to him, tell me, is it monthly quotas or quarterly? He was shook. And I said, I'm in sales too. But one thing I'll never do is sell someone something they don't need. Or something that I won't get their return. I won't have them as a repeat customer. You will never have me as a repeat customer because of the way I'm being treated, but also because you're trying to sell me something that's not going to last. Did that once. Then I went to the next dealership. And this time I lied straight up. And I said, hey, tell me about this car. I had already looked at the car. I had researched the car. I knew all the specs of the car. And he was like, oh, you seem to know what you're talking about. And I just said, yeah, my dad owns a garage. So I've been around cars since I was a kid. And he was like, oh, really? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, I don't know. Like, it's more of a fun thing for me. I thought I would get into it, but I didn't. The mood shifted. I could tell the bullshit-o-meter, it went to a different place where then I ended up buying that car. He met all of my demands. I also did the well, then maybe not today. Yeah, maybe not today. We'll sit down with the finance guy and I'll talk to him, but I don't know, maybe not today. And then the third experience of buying a car. This time I go as an engaged person. I go with Joe. And what did the fucking guy do? This was me buying the car. This was a car for me and Joe to, both of us. But it was like, Joe also is so supportive when it's stuff like that. He hates when people do the whatever, happy wife, happy life, right? And Joe was like, she's buying the car. And then the guy continued to make little sexist remarks. And I said, it's funny. I've been in sales my whole career. I just would never use someone's gender as a selling point.
That is so bizarre.
And it shifted. We ended up buying the car because she was like, you gotta understand, we do really want this car. She's done her homework. It's an off the lot situation today, but I need you to listen to her. Then I needed the pressure, but when you flip it, when you're prepared for the situation, yeah. And then you can say to them, oh, how? Because I was giving the how, the whys, the what. That's also the best part. When you have that sales mindset of someone selling to you, you're like, sorry in advance, this is going to be a hard sell. But you really learn kind of, and also sometimes I get it. We've all been there where I'm like, I'm fucking desperate. I'm one sale away from hitting goal. It's the end of the month. It's 11 p.m. at night. Please come through. But anyway, I digress.
I mean, that's just, we've all been there though, where it's something that you don't need and we've got to sniff through the bullshit. But I'm just even hearing those stories though about that, because that's the part where I feel like, sales, you get such a bad rap, for a reason. But
yeah, and why they say you always hear the used car salesman, it sounds like a dirty thing,
right? But
if that guy, rather than the car that then I purchased, and when it was Joe and I shopping together, I probably won't go back. I wouldn't go back to that guy. Right. I would the dealership I had a fine experience with overall as far as the financing and all that stuff. But it was just I'm annoyed by you saying those things. If he would have just done the things in sales that I like, which are personalization and saying my name. If he would just been now, Stacey, I know you're the one buying this car. So if he would have made it more empowering, all right, husband, don't worry about it. Mm-hmm. This is a girl's world. She's got it. Boss moves. Hyping me up.
Right.
Because I'm I'm writing the check, baby boy.
Right. Right.
What?
Totally. There's no sell in putting anyone down. It just doesn't, exactly. There's no value in that. There's no value in that.
And that's in life, right? It's just like you're saying, better me, rather than putting someone down, even if I'm annoyed with them, having them walk into looking like an idiot because I why, what them. Oh, that surprises me. I'm going to shine.
Yeah. But think about it just with anything. It's if you are kind and genuine, and that's how you approach a new individual that you're meeting, and you are listening to their ideas, you're exchanging ideas, that is an automatic relationship builder, and you want to be associated with that person. You want to connect. If I needed something from that, if I needed to buy something from that individual or, whatever, client, customer, yada, yada, I want to go back.
Mm-hmm. I really like that person. We vibe.
Yes. And that's what I always used to say in recruiting, as, when I worked for agency, that it was not about the agency that I worked for. It was about me.
Yeah.
They were buying my name. And that's still now how, when I, work with agencies at work, it is about the person and I don't just mean, I don't just mean the individual's personality. I mean, yes, I mean the full experience that I'm having with them and how they're working with me, but how they come through the product that they sell, the time that they're saving me, all of those are the things that I'm interested in. And if that person is great, I'm going to follow them to the next agency, because it's not the agency that I'm buying. It's the person that has the ability to help me. That's what I'm buying. Right. And it's no different than, honestly, in parenting too. I work on this with Angel. Donnie, you always laughs at me.
Angel's gonna be raking in the dough. I've never seen such a negotiator and natural seller. Yes. I'm like, this kid is his parents' son.
Yes. And it's not only like, obviously, like parents have to sell their kids too. We're like constantly like negotiating with them to like get them to practice their reading or get them to eat the vegetables. Like, it's all of that, but I do the same thing. When Angel does it now, it's like, Joe laughs, but because he loves it, he's just like, well, that was a really great negotiation. I'm like, 5 more bites of food. And he's like, no, 3, Mom, 3. And I'm like, 4. And he's like, you know what I mean? Like, those little things, I know that their value adds to life, and I want him to be able to do that. It's like,
never take no for an answer.
I mean, honestly, it's like us starting out selling Girl Scout cookies. It's
my God. I always love saying that to people when like they would come when I was still in office and people would bring their kids in to sell. I remember saying that, like, well, this is my first sales job. Cold calling, sitting out in front of a grocery store.
No, it's true.
But it's true, because what's the first thing, at least now, everybody will be like, oh my God, Girl Scout cookies are $8 a box. And then you have to be like, yeah, they're, but we're trying to go to Hershey Park with our troop. So if you would buy 10 boxes, that would be great. It starts there.
It starts young.
Troop 1276. Shout out.
76. I'm dead. Yeah, no, I don't know. And I think just, wrapping up, the other things that I think of are just, when I think of advocating for your health, people talk about that a lot. And I think about, I think about that all the time, where, yes, you're advocating for yourself, but those key sales things that I learned of just asking why, not being scared to ask how, the what,
and confident in the ask
for me, and confident in the ask, and being okay saying, oh, I don't understand that, or that's not my area of expertise.
Can you explain that in a different way?
Stroking their ego and wanting, being like, oh, what you did last time for me, da, da, da. I mean, it's sad that we have to do those things, but it is true, and those things can apply I guess my point is just in all areas of life.
No, it's so true. It's so true. That was like a big one. Even, you heard it in the episode I talked about the egg retrieval with IVF. Well, like any doctor's appointments, but there was one in particular where we weren't happy with the fertility clinics, like how they were managing some of the different testing, or it was different than what we had heard with second opinions and third opinions. And so on this call with the doctor, I was like, okay, Joe, I got the football. I'm going to be, again, it was a prepped conversation. I had my little Google Doc of notes. And when I would say, I noticed you didn't do this test, I knew the doctor is going to say, they're obviously not going to admit to being wrong, right? Most times. He's like, oh yeah, we don't do that because, 9 times out of 10, we look at the data and, people don't need that. I'm making up the response here, his answer. And my response was, I totally understand the data, but how would you know for someone like me that maybe my body wouldn't be responding to, again, making up said hormone? And Joe and I were on this call. It was a conference call, and it was a day where we couldn't be in the same room. And Joe's texting me like, you were crushing this. And it was it took courage, because I'm going up with a doctor that we talked about it before. I'm not talking shit on doctors, but different situations, you're just like, they don't want it to be a back and forth. It's like, I get it. You're the subject matter expert. However, I'm the patient. I'm the customer paying for this. Yes. And then I said, well, why? First it was, well, why don't you do the test? Well, how can you tell? And when he said he couldn't answer, well, we can't, because you can't know that your body doesn't absorb this hormone without doing another blood test. He then said, well, we can add that test in if you want. I said, I do. And then went to the next question of, now, what does this mean? Waited for him to explain it. And then I said, so how is that different than X? And why, when I asked 2 other clinics, what their protocol was, they do it. Why not here? Well, you can also start to see when the bullshit meter goes off for places of like, what's a candid response versus what's a thought out, let me have it back and forth. So like you were saying in the medical one, it's huge. Like approach it like sales because you are the customer. And why? Like literally try to ask why at least 3 times in a conversation or how. And you'll see people start to panic.
Yeah. No, and if anything, too, you just have to remember I think this is where 2 little things that and actually just maybe we'll just do a takeaway wrap up of being straight out of school and having to make those calls to a chief financial officer or having to interview one and having to realize that we are all just people.
Yes.
I am 22 here, sitting here, and because I'm the person that can help you get a job, the 45-year-old sitting in front of me is hanging on my every word. Yeah. They're wanting to know, and especially think about it, the days before it was just so, easy to point and click and apply. And even then, we all know how hard it is if you don't have a network. If you don't have that, and there was no LinkedIn, like they knew I was the one talking to these people every day.
Right.
And they valued my opinion. And it was just that unlock of, we're all just people at the end of the day. It's okay if I don't know all the things. I can admit that I don't. And I am trying to be that bridge and that unlock, and let's work together. And that's when then I would get super confident in like, you got to tell me what you would know. Yeah. Your top 3 companies. Okay. They're these 3 nonprofits.
And how can I help you?
How can I help you? Give me the info. How can we sell this? So when I get on the phone, I can pitch you. And it's that realization that we're all just people, and it's not about luck. Yeah. You will hear people say that. I would hear that in the sales room. People say like, talking about a top seller because they got to be jealous of her. Oh my God, so lucky that she got that one client. And I would say, I have to disagree with you. I've been on, I sit and I talk to, said top sales managers, top sales individual. And I go on those meetings with her. She is always on the phone and she's never at her desk. So just because her brother took her on a meeting to meet this new said client, that's not luck. That's because she always says yes to every opportunity. She always
she asked.
And she asked. And she takes every call. And she shows up to the 7:00 game and the 8:00 breakfast. That's not luck. That's just constantly doing the work.
That's hard work.
And there's a little bit of luck that can come in there, but 90% of it
but
is
it's
just
not
action.
all luck.
Is action.
Yeah, it's action. Like you said, the luck follows when you've put in the work. You've made the connections that it's not even luck again, that you've been doing all the outreach that, of course, if you have now these...
It can be stars aligning.
Right.
It can be stars aligning because you keep showing up and then that one day it all unlocks action. And you remember what the person loves to talk about. So when you show up at the random networking event and they're there too, and you ask them about the kids' soccer game, and that they made the varsity or whatever, it's that unlock that allows you to make the connection, be appreciated, and be remembered.
Yeah.
And so I think in closing, life is sales.
Life is
connections. Life is community.
And be curious.
Yeah.
Do ask open-ended questions.
And be helpful.
And I think that's it, like we said earlier too, we're in a day and age where there's a lot of, like, yes, we're all trying to, like when you said earlier about selling ourselves and, your own personal brand and all that. There's a lot of me. When you start to be curious about other people, and you also just take the action of like, pick up the phone, make the call, ask the person, hey, will you have a 5-minute coffee with me? I'm curious about what it is that you do. Just fucking do it.
Yep.
Like you said, the worst thing they can say is like, no, actually, I don't want to help you. And then you're like, okay, I will ask someone else. There's a bunch of people out there, and especially now in a world where a lot of us do work remote and we aren't as physically connected, people do want to have those other conversations. So, you know, I'm going to go sell to my husband. Just kidding.
I was literally just thinking in my head, we didn't have as many funny moments, and then you closed us out with it. That caught me off guard. But it's true, though. I was just thinking like, ooh, I got to get home to Angel.
And I won't reveal that on here. When Joe thinks it's his idea versus when I've sold it to him.
But, you know, I got to go home to JD
and little Angel. But yeah, because you're going to have some negotiation. I bet you're going to have a couple of sales conversations
I will be
tonight
negotiating all night long.
Where you are not going to be the seller.
No, I know at home, it's always Angel selling me, JD selling me. They're always trying to get me to say yes.
Oh, you go to the Donahues, you're going to walk out of there thinking, I got to buy this new thing. I got to try this new thing. And I've got to make more time for this thing.
Yeah, we are influencers, not going to lie.
We are influencers. All right. Well, have a great week. Remember to review us. I said weekend, coming into the weekend, coming into Friday. Yeah. Review, like us, love us, share us. And just remember this week, active listening and, you know, challenge somebody with the why.
Yeah.
Why and wait.
Why and wait. Yes.
Cheers.